All right. So today's message is called Double Down. So I've been noticing how heavy it is out there with all the people that I know, all the stuff that people are going through right now, all the struggles, I mean, I have watched just the craziestness. It seems like the devil is just on the loose right now, just trying to wreak havoc in people's lives. And I can see in a lot of my immediate friends and just you guys, here on the Zoom, our 99 family, how much struggle you guys have been going through. And it's just crazy how much is really going on right now. And there's a lot of people just going through it. And so and I've been praying. And, for me, when other people go through it that I care about, it feels like I'm going through it. Whatever it is, it gets pretty heavy when you love people and you see them going through stuff, and there's nothing you can do but believe for them. There's nothing you could do but stand in faith and just go, God, I know you're doing something. And sometimes they can't see it and you can't see it, and you just have to believe for them. It's really hard and it can get kind of heavy. So I just want to say, a lot of you guys on here been on here for a long time. We've been doing Zooms together for a long time, and I've watched a lot of you guys go through hard stuff. I've prayed with you. I've watched you guys go through stuff, and I just want you to know how proud I am that I've got to see you guys go through what you've been through and come out the other side with your hands raised in the air. Come out with a hallelujah. Come out in victory. I have watched you guys do that time and time again. And I'm sitting and I'm watching some of you others going through stuff right now. Like, you guys are in the fire right now. And I'm just so proud of to be able to call myself your guys' friend. Like, I just watch the fight in you guys, and it's amazing, and it's so encouraging to me. I'm not going through it right now. I've been through some battles, and I've had to go through it, and you guys know that. But I just, I'm so encouraged by you guys and the struggle that we all go through. So that's the thing, is it's not just one person. It's never, it's all of us. And it's not always, oh, you did something wrong, so now you got to pay. No, sometimes you're doing everything right. You're by the book, going to church when you're supposed to. You're praying every morning. You're reading every day. You're doing everything you're supposed to, and all hell is breaking loose in your life, right? And you're like, oh, what gives? Like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, and this sucks. But anyway, so I just want to encourage you guys, keep fighting, keep on going. Because some of you are holding on for dear life right now, and I just want to encourage you. Keep up the good fight. Keep fighting. So I have a little clip for us to watch. And so Lupe's going to put this clip on. I just love this clip. As she gets it ready, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. But I love this clip. This is so motivating to me. And to me, I know it's a boxing clip. So some of you ladies are probably like, oh, not Rocky again. Yeah, us guys love Rocky. Sorry. But it's just an amazing clip of, and I just kind of relate it to the Christian life. Are you ready with it, Lupe? Or are you waiting for me? Oh, no, I'll just keep talking. You just put it on when it's ready and I'll stop. So, but to me, I can relate this with the Christian walk, because it feels like sometimes you can't win for losing. You know what I mean? Anything you do, you're just taking it on the chin every turn. And it seems like you're never going to be able to overcome. It seems like it's coming, it just wants you to give up. Like, whatever you're going through is trying to force you to quit. And so this video is so awesome.
Can you see it on the screen?
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
Okay, champ. More clear.
All right, there it is. I know some of you guys seen that movie. If you haven't seen that movie, so that's Rocky fighting Apollo Creed, and Apollo Creed's like the devil, right? And Rocky's like us, just trying to make it through life, just trying to be a good guy. And Apollo Creed wants to ruin his life. So I love that clip, because it's like, here Apollo Creed, and if you watch the movie, he's the biggest jerk in the movie, right? And so he's got no honor, and he's just a jerk. He gives Rocky no credit. He treats him like crap. And so here Rocky is, and he's getting beat up that whole fight. He's fighting the champion, and Apollo gives him everything he has, and he knocks him down. And you can see the manager going, stay down, stay down. And, sometimes that's the feeling around you with your friends even. It's like, dude, just give up. Just like stay down, like just bow to it. But Rocky's not willing to give up. And there he gets up at the end, and you see Apollo's face, and it's like everything is just drained from him because he realized that he couldn't make him quit. That he might win the fight, but he can't make him quit. And I just love that, because sometimes, sometimes it feels like the world just wants to make you quit. I have to admit, I've been shaken a few times where I've questioned everything. I've been shaken to the core a couple times, more than a few times, just shaken as a Christian, shaken to the core where I'm questioning everything, and so. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring that clip in, because you just see the fight of this guy. And that's how we have to be. We have to be those that continue to get up, that continue to fight, that don't have any quit in us. I want to read out of Hebrews chapter 11, verse 13 through 16. I read out of the New King James Version. So it says, these all died in faith. So this is okay, I'll just pause real quick. This is the book of faith. The writer is talking about all these great men of faith and what they did. He's talking about Noah and Abel and Moses and Abraham and all these great men of faith, and how they locked onto the prize, how they locked onto the call. And so here he says, all these died in faith, not have received the promises, but have seen them afar off and were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they called to mind a country which they had come out of, they would have had opportunity to return. But now they desire a better, that is a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, and has prepared a city for them. Look, these people had to go through trials. They had to go through tribulation. They had to go through struggle. They had to walk when they couldn't see, right? When they could barely stand, they still had to walk. They still had to believe when no one else was believing. They still had to believe in the promise. Noah, nobody around Noah believed, but Noah. Nobody around Abraham believed, but Abraham, right? They had to believe, even though to the natural it didn't seem possible. But they kept their eyes fixed, and it says that they could have turned around. That if they would have called to mind the country they came out of, they would have had opportunity to go back. And that's the same with us, is we have opportunity to go back. If we think, the more you think about it, the more you dwell on it. Oh, I was happy there. You can go back, and we don't want to be those who go back. And so, if we're going to be these great people of faith, we need to be fixed on the goal. And I love the end of it, the very last part of that. It says, therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God. It says, I'm proud those are my kids. These ones who have overcome obstacles. Those guys, we go in our lives and we think that we're the only ones going through something, right? I know I get like this. I go, man, no one's ever, in my own mind, the devil is telling me, no one ever goes through like you. No one's suffering like you. Yeah, right. Look around you. Everybody, and then, so that's why it's so encouraging to watch you guys and the things you go through, and to watch you go through them with your heads held high, to watch you go through them. That inspires me, because I go, I don't know that I could do that, what you're doing. If I put myself in your shoes, I'm not sure that I could do what you're doing, but it's amazing to watch you do it. So I just, and I love that he says, God's not ashamed to be called their God. We could be those people that God's not ashamed to be called our God. And so, like I said, I've been shaken to the point where I question everything. And it feels, sometimes it feels like we're losing. It feels like we're losing. One time I remember I used to go out every Friday night to go to minister to the homeless, right? With the DOC. So I'd go out every Friday night. I did that for like a year. And I remember I went out there one time, and there was this guy, And I've told some of you guys that you've heard this story, some of you, but there was a guy who I live in Lakeside, and there's a guy who I seen before playing a guitar by my house, right? I've seen him all the time at the 7-Eleven, and I go out and there he is off the trolley and he's drunk. And so I'm praying, I go, hey, can I pray for you? And I pray for him and he's crying and stuff. And he looks at me and he lifts his hand up and he says, they killed my hand. He had a dead hand. The guy who played guitar, right? Somebody came at him with a machete to try to get his wallet, and he put his hand up, and they cut the nerves or whatever, and his hand didn't work anymore. And he starts to cry, and he says, and I can't play guitar anymore. And it broke. I don't even play a musical instrument, but it broke my heart because they stole something from him that he loved. I seen that he lost something he couldn't get back, and something that meant something to him, and it broke my heart. And I prayed for him again, and I was crying, and I prayed over him, and that was really hard for me to go through that, right? This guy with this dead hand, it hurt me to see that because I felt his pain, that what he had lost. And the next day I went over to Eddie's house, or maybe it was the next weekend or whatever. And I think it was the next day because it was Saturday, and I was supposed to help. We're going to do this outreach. So we're going over to ECTLC with all this stuff. So I'm going over there to pick the stuff up, and there Eddie is having a seizure, right? This was the first seizure I seen him. And I lost my cousin, Johnny. We're 2 weeks apart. I lost him. He was 21 years old. I think he was 21, I don't know, 20 or 21 or 22, somewhere in there. But anyways, we were 2 weeks apart, and he had a seizure. He had epilepsy, and he had a seizure, and he died. He broke his neck, and he died and it was devastating for me. Anyway, so here Eddie is, and I had experienced seizures before with my cousin Johnny, and here Eddie is having a seizure, and I'm praying over him. I'm crying, and it was just, and so I helped him get his seizure finally ended. It was the longest seizure I ever seen, and it lasted forever. And so then we went and we dropped off this stuff at ECTLC, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go home and I'll come back to help pick up the stuff. I was really struggling inside, the night before with the guy with the hand, and now Eddie. And I'm driving home and I'm crying and I'm praying to God, and I'm saying, God, why does it feel like we're losing? Why does it feel like we're losing? I don't get it, and here I am. I'm not a new believer, but I'm new to the walk. I haven't been in this thing very long at this point, and I'm new to walking this thing out, and I'm crying. I mean, my heart is broken for Eddie and for this guy with the one hand, and I go, God, why does it feel like we're losing? And so I went home, and I could have just went to sleep. That's what I felt like doing. But I said, I'm going to open my Bible. I'm going to open my word. And so when I opened it, I had been reading the Bible, and wherever I was, I just opened it to wherever I was at, wherever I left off last, right? And I was in the book of Judges. And so when I opened it, it was at Gideon. And I had read the story before, but I hadn't read it in a long time. And so I started reading it, and it said Gideon was in the wine, and I don't got this up on the screen or nothing, but it says Gideon was in the wine press. That Israel had been overtaken by their enemies, and they couldn't even grow their crops. They kept on cutting everything down. So he was in the wine press grinding some wheat. He was hiding, and the Lord appeared to him. And basically what Gideon says to the angel of the Lord, he says, why are we losing? It was the same thing I was asking God. Why are we losing? Why does it feel like we're losing? And God told him, mighty man of valor, I'm sending you in your might. And this was before Gideon ever did anything. He was sent. And the cool thing was, Eddie always called me mighty man of valor. So it was like God spoke to me. Here I was crying on the way home, asking God, and you want to hear from God, and I don't hear anything. But I open my Bible and I hear from God in that moment. But I would have never heard it if I didn't open my Bible. I heard it because I opened his word, and his word's alive. And he knew I would be there in that day, in that moment. And he was going to encourage me. He was going to lift me up in that moment. So what do we do when it feels like we're losing? That's a question for us. What do we do when it feels like we're losing? So I had always been the type of guy when I was losing to give with God, to give up or to walk away or to, whatever, right? But not in that moment. There's no more quit in me. There was nothing to go back to where would I go, right? So I opened my word, and there's where I found my healing. There's where I found my encouragement, my strength, if you would. So what do we do when it feels like we're losing? So one thing we need to do is we need to follow the example of those who have gone before us and who have won, right? The Bible has, we have some of those people in our lives that we could look to, but we also could look in the Bible. We need to double down. Hence the message, double down, right? We need to double down when it feels like we're losing. No, I'm not quitting. What did Rocky do? They stay down, Rocky, stay down. No, he doubled down. He got back up and he continued to fight. And that's what we need to do. We need to double down. When I lived in the world, I got in a lot of fights. And the one thing that was more terrifying than anything when you fought somebody, it wasn't how big a guy was. It was the guy who you knew you couldn't get to quit. That's who I was scared of. I wasn't scared of the big guy who outweighed me by 100 pounds. I was scared of the guy who I knew I couldn't get to quit, that would keep getting up. That's the guy who terrified you. And that's who terrifies the devil, is those of us who keep getting up. And that's what we need to do. We need to double down. So let's look at a few of these champions in the Bible. And we're going to start in Genesis chapter 39. So chapter 39, and we're going to read verses 2 through 4. And then I'm going to read some more out of chapter 39. We're going to skip ahead a little bit. So here we are. We're talking about Joseph. Let me just give background because I like to do that. So this is Joseph. He got sold into slavery by his brothers. When he was with his brothers, he had this dream, right? And so God had showed him this, that he was going to rule and that he was going to be over his family and all this stuff. And his brothers were jealous and they beat him up and they threw him in a pit and they sold him off to the Egyptians. And so Joseph had this dream for his life. God had given him a vision for his life, and he had this great plan for Joseph's life. But here Joseph finds himself losing, right? Here he finds himself in a problem where he gets sold off into slavery. So let's see what Joseph does in that. So it says in verse 2, it says, the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And the master saw that the Lord was with him, and he made all that he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight, and he served him. So we see that the Lord was with him. But why was the Lord with him? Because Joseph stayed serving. He stayed proactive. He stayed humble. He didn't retreat. He kept on going forward. He pressed in. So he found the favor of the Lord. And in finding the favor of the Lord, he found the favor of the Pharaoh. He didn't do that by not working hard. He didn't do that by quitting. He didn't do that by throwing his hands in there and go, oh, I'm sold into slavery. Oh, well, no, he did that. And the Lord was with him in all that he did, and he prospered, but he put his hand to the plow. He kept pressing on. And so we see there that he found favor when he did that. And then we're going to go to verse 21 through 23, same thing. Genesis 39, 21 through 20. It's still Joseph, same story, but we're just skipping ahead. So we skip ahead through where Joseph is faithful, and the Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him, and he doesn't submit to temptation, and he runs. He's doing what he's supposed to, right? Like I was talking about, he's doing everything he's supposed to do, and he gets thrown into prison. And it says this, starting in 21, it says, but the Lord was with Joseph, and he showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was in his doing. And the keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. So again, here Joseph finds himself in unfavorable circumstance. He finds himself in prison. He's losing, right? He's doing everything he's supposed to do, and it feels like he's losing. And he just continues to press on. Now we read this and it's real short, right? It just gets to the point. It doesn't tell you about all the heartache and heartbreak and everything Joseph had to go through. His brothers sold him into slavery. You think that didn't hurt? You think that didn't hurt his heart? You think that his brothers just hated him and sold him into slavery? How would you feel? How would that make us feel if our own family sold us into slavery? There's some hurt there that comes with that. He gets thrown into prison for not doing something that he didn't do, right? How many of you ever been accused of something you didn't do? How mad does that make you? How upset does that make you? You feel like you're being cursed when you're doing something right, and here you are being blamed for something you didn't do. So we don't see all the emotion that goes on and all the, because we're talking about years, we're talking about time here that is buckled down in a couple sentences. But think about all the stuff Joseph went through, where he would have had opportunity to quit, where he would have had an opportunity, like that verse in Hebrews says, to return to his homeland. Not really return to his homeland, but return to not doing what he's supposed to be doing, right? To just being not unfaithful to God. But here he continues to press on, and God continues to prosper him. And we read that and we say, oh, well, he was blessed while he was in prison. Yeah, but he was still in prison. Well, he was blessed when he was in slavery. Yeah, he was still a slave. Okay, so but he was able to find happiness in those things, and he was able to find contentment and a life worth living while he was there. So I want to talk about what Joseph did. But before we talk about that, let's talk about what Joseph didn't do. He didn't have a pity party. Joseph didn't have a pity party. I don't know about you guys, but me, when I throw a pity party, I go big. Oh, I bring out the streamers, the bells, the whistles. I got confetti. I got sparklers, the whole bit. And if you're around me, you better be ready to eat some worms, right? Because nobody likes me, and I'm just going to eat worms. Okay, so when I throw a pity party, I go big. But that's Joseph didn't. Joseph didn't. He didn't throw a pity party. He stayed focused. He made the best out of his situation. And I know for me, when I throw a pity party, I don't get anywhere. When I throw a pity party is when I actually lose. It might feel like I'm losing, but when I throw a pity party, I really do lose. And so he didn't throw a pity party. He didn't worry about where he wasn't. Joseph wasn't worried about where he wasn't. He was in slavery. He wasn't worried about where he wasn't. He was in prison. He wasn't worried about where he wasn't. He was doing what he could do where he was. He didn't worry about what he didn't have. He wasn't complaining to anybody who would listen, right? You know, when I'm going through stuff, sometimes I find myself complaining, and I'll complain to anybody who might listen, the customer at work, anybody, I don't care. If you'll listen, Henry hears it. My poor dog, I got to get him some like earmuffs or something, you know, so you don't have to listen to me. Anyway, so he wasn't complaining, right? Because here, when he was with the butcher and those guys, he was interpreting their dreams, and he was doing all kinds of cool stuff. He wasn't complaining. He doubled down, and he served where he was. He didn't worry about where he wasn't. Sometimes I find myself, I don't know about you guys, but I find myself worried about where I'm not, thinking ahead to my future instead of being concerned where I'm at and getting the most out of where I'm at right now. Maybe I'm not where I want to be, but there's still something for me here. See, Joseph wasn't going to get to where he was going without getting what he got where he was, right? Without getting the most out of where he was. He was being trained, and we have hindsight. So we look back at Joseph's life and we go, oh yeah, he was being trained to lead. He was being trained, and sometimes so are we, and we're going, God, where are you? Where are you? It's time to double down. It's time to double down wherever we're at and allow God to work in our lives. Let's see. So I believe that Joseph kept believing. See, I'm making some assumptions. I'm making the assumption that he didn't complain. I'm making the assumption that he didn't worry about these things, because it doesn't say that he didn't do that. Now, how am I making those assumptions? That I'm assuming that he kept believing. How am I making those assumptions? Because of these actions, because he kept doing what he was supposed to be doing. You're not going to be doing those things if you're not believing anymore, right? You're not going to be doing those things if you're not believing anymore. And so I believe that he believed that God still was for him, that God still had a plan for him. Otherwise, he would have quit when he went to prison. Otherwise, he would have quit when he went to slavery. Otherwise, he would have quit so many times. But see, he had to read between the lines, because look, he went to prison for obeying God's commandments, right? He didn't do what he wasn't supposed to do. And because he did the right thing, he went to prison. It would have been real easy to go, God, where are you? You let me go to prison and I was just doing what you asked me to do, right? But I believe that he didn't do that because of the way that he lived his life, and God prospered him through that whole thing, and he grew. I want to read Galatians 6:9, chapter 6, verse 9. I have it somewhere in here. Or maybe I didn't mark it. Okay. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due time or in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. That's what Joseph did. He didn't grow weary in doing good. It's the same thing we need to do in our lives when we're going through whatever we're going through, when it feels like we're losing, because why would you grow weary while doing good? Because it feels like you're losing, because it feels like it's over, because it feels like you can't win, right? Don't grow weary while doing good, for you will reap in due season if you don't lose heart. That's true. What happened with Joseph? We know the story. He didn't lose heart. And what happens? He ends up being second only to Pharaoh. His whole family gets saved through him. Everything he went through was preparation for where he was going. And so we need to have that same mindset, that double down mindset. I want to go to Numbers chapter 13, because we're going to look at a different group of people now. Numbers chapter 13, verse 30. I don't know what verses. Okay, yeah, 30. Oh yeah, 30 through 14:4 is what we're going to go through. So it says this. Then Caleb. Okay, so this is. Let me start. I always like to give a little background. So this is the Israelites have been following Moses through the wilderness, and God's trying to bring them to the promised land, right? And so they come up over this hill, and they're going to send some spies into the promised land to find out what's there. Like, what are we up against? What are we facing? What are we looking at? And so they send these 12 spies back in there, and they come back with a report. And so, and so they come back with a report, and 10 of them gave a bad report. They gave a bad report that there's giants in the land and this and that. They did say that it was the land of milk and honey. They did say that. They said that there was big fruit. It was abundant, but there was giants, that we are grasshoppers in their sight, right? Like there was a negative report. And so that's where we're going to start. But Caleb and Joshua went in there. There was 12 of them. 10 of them came back with a negative report. Caleb and Joshua had a different perspective of what was going on. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are able to overcome it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go against the people, for they are stronger than we." And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, "The land, though we had through which we have gone as spies, is a land that devoureth its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. And we saw giants, descendants of Enoch came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, as so we are in their sight." So all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And the children of Israel complained at Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, "If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or we died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" So they said to one another, "Let us select a leader and return to Egypt." Okay, look at two sets of people here, right? They both seen the same thing. Or they all seen that, all 12 of them seen the same thing. They seen this land, they seen these giants, they all seen the same thing. 10 of them had a perspective of doom and gloom. We can't do this. No faith. Their faith was lost when it overcame them. Their perspective was, this is too big for us. But the two had a different perspective. Their perspective was that God had called them to this, and that through God, all things are possible, that he had victory for them, that this was something he was calling them to. And so I love I heard a pastor say, and he says, who was right, the 10 or the 2? And you would think that the 2 were right, but he says, no, they were both right, because the 10 saw it too big for them and they didn't have faith. They were right. It was too big for them. They weren't able to go in because they didn't have faith to go in. And the 2 were right, that because of their faith, they were able to go in because God was with them, right? So, here they are, they get there and they give up. They start complaining. What did the ones do that didn't have the faith? They complained, where the other ones were relying on God. And so if you know how the story ends, is that God in his anger gets aroused towards them because of their they sinned all the way up to this point, and God has been patient with them all the way up, right? And he's trying to bring them into this land of promise. And here they are, and they won't believe in him after all the miracles. And so in his wrath, he promises that they're not going to enter in, that they can't enter into the land. But Caleb and Joshua will be able to go in. So their faith, they're able to go into that land and possess it. But for the rest of the congregation who wanted to return to Egypt, they didn't get to go in. They gave up. They gave that up. And so they had to live out their life in wilderness. And so here Joshua and Caleb doubled down. When they seen the problem, they doubled down. They said, no, we're going in. Let's go. Even though the rest of them were crying and complaining, they were trying to talk them into going. So we see Joshua and Caleb, these great men of faith. This is, again, there might be some things we're facing that look too big for us. Now, are we going to have the attitude of the 10, or are we going to have the attitude of the 2? I'm hoping that we have the attitude of the 2. And I know some of you guys, and you guys do have that attitude. So I want to encourage you, keep on trucking with that. Okay, so Hebrews chapter 10, verse 35 through 39. We're doing all right on time. Chapter 10, verse 35 through 39. All right. He says, therefore, do not cast away your confidence, which has great reward, for you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise. For yet a little while, he who is coming will not tarry. And now the just shall live by faith. But if anyone draws back, my soul has no pleasure in him. But we are not those who draw back to perdition, but those who believe to the saving of the soul. So, and another version, I think, says, we're not those who draw back to ruin or loss, right? We're not those who draw back. So I love this verse because this is what those guys were facing in that moment. And now he's not talking about them, but this is us. But he says, don't cast away your confidence. Well, where does our confidence come from? It comes from God. It comes from remembering what we've been through with them. Our confidence comes through Jesus. It comes through his promises. It comes through knowing him. That's where my confidence comes from. My confidence doesn't come from Bill and what Bill can achieve. My confidence comes from what Jesus has achieved in me already and what I know he can do in my life. It's where my confidence comes from. He says, don't give up your confidence, for it has reward. And then he says, I love how he says, and yet for a little while, he is who is coming will not tarry. He says Jesus is coming, and though it feels like he's taking his time, he's on his way. You know, you could put that in the bank. He's coming. He will not tarry. And he says, if anyone draws back, my soul has no pleasure. So that was the same thing with those children of Israel. What did? They drew back. When they faced that challenge, they said, let's go back to Egypt. It says, my soul will have no pleasure in them. And his wrath was upon them for that. But then it says, but we are not those. So this is something the writer's proclaiming over the readers, the Jewish readers that he's writing to, this church that's being persecuted, these people who are going through trials and tribulations and the struggles of their lives. And he says, but we're not those. You guys, 99, we're not those who draw back to ruin or loss. We're not those. But we believe to the saving of life, to the triumph of our lives, to the completion of our lives. We're those who believe unto that, to the saving of, to the life worth living, not giving in to what the enemy is trying to make us quit. So, we've come so far, and this is what I always say: don't quit now. Don't quit now. You come too far to quit now. This is how I look at my life. I'm not going back. There's no way. I've been through too much. I've given up too much. I'm not going to let that be in vain. All the tears I've cried are not going to be in vain. I'm not going back. I've been through too much to quit now. I don't care what I face. I can't go back now. Where would I go? Remember, we read that verse last week. Peter said, or 2 weeks ago, Peter looks at Jesus and he said, or Jesus says, you guys want to leave too? Peter says, to where will we go? To whom would we run? We know you. I wouldn't be happy anywhere else. So don't quit now. Whatever you're going through, no matter how hard it is, I want to encourage you, don't quit now. Don't give up now. You've come too far. Don't give in. Okay. So now we're gonna skip to Daniel chapter 3. I love this one. This is one of my favorites. Chapter 3. Oh, all right. I have a marker. Okay, chapter 3, verse 15 through 18. Okay, so here's what's going on here. Israel is captive to the Babylonians, to Nebuchadnezzar, and he's made this rule that everybody when they hear this noise, that they have to bow down and they have to worship him, and they're not allowed to worship any other god, right? They have to worship Nebuchadnezzar. He's made this rule, and if you don't do it, then you're going to get thrown in the furnace. So this is where we're going to catch up with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, 3 servants of God who are unwilling to go back. They're unwilling to sacrifice what they know is true, and they're going to hold on to their faith. So here we catch up with them after this has happened, and they've been busted actually for not doing it. They've been told on. There's some rats in the kingdom that are looking for these guys to mess up. How many of you feel like there's people watching you just waiting for you to mess up? Come on, right? Just waiting to tell somebody, oh, look at what so-and-so did. So here they are. They're just waiting for him to mess up so they could tell the king. But they don't realize that they're serving the real king, Jesus. And so here we are in verse 15. And it says, okay, so they bring him before him. Let's see. Okay, now if you're ready to, okay, so I should have started in verse 13. Sorry, it's not up there. So I'm going to start in verse 13. It says, then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if you are ready at the time when you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the harp, the lyre, in symphony with all kinds of music, and you fall down and worship the image which I have made, good. But if you do not worship the image, you shall be cast immediately into the burning furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer to you in this matter. For if it is the case of our God who we serve is able to deliver us from the burning furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the golden image which you have set up. And now I want to skip to verse, still chapter 3, same people. So they go through the fire, right? They go through the fire. God protects them. They come out of the fire. And it says in verse 30, then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So this is pretty cool. First of all, they say they're not going to bow down. They don't care what the consequences are. They say, you know what? God's going to deliver me. But even if he doesn't, this is the attitude that I want to have. This attitude right here. God is going to deliver me. God is going to make a way for me. God is going to provide for me. But even if he doesn't, I'm not bowing down to you. I'm not going to worship this world. I'm not going back. I'm not going to quit. Even if he doesn't show up, let it be known. I won't worship you. I worship the one true king. That's the attitude of a double downer. That's the attitude we have to have. No matter what the consequence, I'm not bowing down. And so that's this. So God uses what the devil was trying to destroy them with to promote them. I love that. That's why I brought that last verse up. So what the enemy used to destroy them, God used to promote them. Because of their faith, they stood in that fire. God provided for them. They came out and they were promoted because of their faithfulness. God used what the enemy meant to bring them harm, to bring their promotion. They were only able to receive that blessing because they were faithful under fire. You guys want blessing? Be faithful under fire. Be faithful under fire. Joseph, go back to the story of Joseph. He was faithful under fire. In prison, in slavery, he was faithful. In prison, he was faithful. He was faithful under fire. Joshua and Caleb, they were faithful under fire. We need to be faithful under fire. And that's what I always got to look at their names because I forget. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, those guys were faithful under fire, and they were promoted because they were faithful. We have that same opportunity. Whatever you're going through, little or big, you have opportunity to be faithful in it. That's your opportunity. Your opportunity is to be faithful in whatever circumstance you find yourself in. My opportunity is whatever circumstance I find myself in any given moment, that I could be faithful. You could throw me in the fire, but I will not bow down. Any circumstance. That's who I want to be. I'm not saying that's who I am. That's who I'm striving to be, guys. That's who I want to be in every moment. Romans 8:28 says, it doesn't say that. It says God causes all things to work together for good for those who, oh, there we are. Nope. It's all right. We know it by heart. We know this one. Romans 8:28 says God causes all things to work together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Well, that we go, well, that sounds good. Let me see that in action. Well, look at these people's lives. Look at Jacob. God used all things together for good to him who loved him and trusted him, right? He used it to good. In Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they were getting thrown into the fire. He used it for good. He wants to use whatever we're going through to work together for good. How do we love him? It says for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. How do we love him? It says, you love me by following my commandments. That's how you love me, by following my commandments. So also Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Three, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. Trust in the Lord. We need to trust in the Lord. That's what Jacob did. That's what Meshach did, and Abednego and all those guys. All these people that we're talking about all did that. That's what Joshua and Caleb did. They trusted in the Lord with all their heart. They didn't have to be in a favorable circumstance to trust in the Lord. It's easy to trust the Lord when your bank account's in the positive, right? It's another thing when it's in the negative. It's easy to trust in the Lord when things are going good. It's different when all hell is breaking loose. When you're getting thrown into the fire, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Don't try to understand it for yourself. Lean not on your own understanding. Know that he's got you. That's who I'm trying to be right there. I'm trying in those moments not to go, well, it looks like this. I need to make up a lie. I need to try to get this for myself. No, that's what got me in all this wreck in the first place. I was trying to do it on my own. I need to let him direct my path. We have to trust that God sees the big picture. We have to trust in God that he sees the big picture. We're not going to be able to see it. We're not standing in the same place he's standing, so we can't see it. When we're kids, right? We always ask our parents why, right? A million whys. You ever meet one of those kids, a million why kid? Why this? Why that? Why this? Right? So I have this job in I love these people, Jared and what's his wife's name? I forget her name. It'll come to me. But and they have a kid, and his name's Henry. And Henry's like 2 or 3 years old. I don't know. He loves me, and I love Henry. Henry's so amazing. He follows me around the house. I give him his own tape measure. I bring in the small ladder. I give him his own ladder. He helps me with whatever I'm doing, little Henry, right? And every time I'm doing something, hey, Henry, hand me that. He hands it to me. He's like 3 years old, right? This kid. And everything is why. Why? Oh, I'm going to cut this hole here. Why? Why? Oh, I got to pull a wire through there. Why? Because I'm going to put a light up. Why? Because you guys want light in the house. Why? Everything's a why with Henry, right? So I always say why to him. Me and Henry have this cool relationship. I love little Henry. And see, so Henry doesn't understand the why. He's asking why because he can't see the big picture. But I'm able to answer because I could see it. I know why I'm cutting the hole. I know why I'm pulling the wire. I don't have to ask why because I see the big picture. I know what it takes to get from point A to point B, where as kids, we can't always see that, right? But a good parent will direct us. See, we ask why, and a lot of times when we're kids, our parents will tell us because I told you so. That's their answer. But they don't want to go through the explanation, but they see and there's a good reason. I remember when I was a kid, they always told us to wear shoes when we ride our skateboards. I never wore shoes when I was a kid. I'm just, I was that kid. I had a Kool-Aid stain, no t-shirt, no shoes. I still don't wear a shirt very often, but I don't do the Kool-Aid stain anymore. But so me and my brother, we never wore shoes, right? But we were always told, hey, if you're going to ride a bike, you're going to ride a skateboard, wear your stinking shoes. And I remember we were out there, when we're riding a skateboard, me and my brother are sitting downhill on the skateboard. We were on this turn, and you know how the board will kind of shift like that? Well, my brother's foot went under the board as we went around that turn downhill, and he had no shoes on. So guess what happened? It sawed his ankle off, like his ankle that, it took that little nub right there all the way down. He's bleeding and crying and everything. You can't stop that skateboard. I got no shoes to put my feet down, right? So he's the brakes at that point. And so he's got to go to the hospital and all that stuff. But see, we couldn't see the big picture. Well, why? Why can't we ride our bike without shoes? Why can't I, right? Don't we ask God why all the time? Well, why, God? Why am I not ready for a relationship right now? Why am I not, right? We always ask why. God sees the big picture. That's why. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. See, he could see the end result. So whatever we're going through, we could trust in that he sees the end result. Sometimes it feels like he doesn't care that we're suffering. It feels like he doesn't care that we're going through it. It's not that he doesn't care, but he knows that going through that's going to get you to where he's taking you. So he's okay with it. Even though it hurts really bad, even though it sucks, even though it's the worst thing you ever been through, he's not leaving you in it. He's walking you through it. That's why he's not taking it away. Sometimes we got to go through it, guys. It sucks. And I hate to say that, but we got to go through it. And he sees the big picture. And it's not that your sufferings don't matter. He just knows where he's taking you. He sees the big picture. I'm sure Joseph cried out in slavery. I'm sure Joseph cried out in prison. I'm sure Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego were crying out, going, God, I can't believe you're going to allow us to get thrown in this fire right now. He's seeing the big picture. He's like a good parent, and he hasn't left us. So with that, that's the message for tonight. I didn't come up with a question or anything, so I'm going to open it up, and then maybe we could pray for a couple people, but let's open it up to comments. I just want to encourage you guys, double down wherever you're at. Make a stand wherever you're at in your life right now, whatever you're going through. Make this stand. You could throw me in the fire, but I won't bow down. I'm not going back. Make that stand. Let your God fight for you. He wants to fight for you. His word says his eyes go to and fro, looking for those who are loyal to him to show himself strong on their behalf or mighty on their behalf. I want to be found that one that he wants to be mighty on my behalf. I want to be found to be the one who he's not ashamed to be called my God. We could be those people, guys. But it doesn't happen on accident. So I hope that message encouraged you guys. I'm going to open it up. Anybody got any comments on that?